talofa, malo lei, aloha. My name is Faauuga Moliga, and I'm a school social worker and a parent with kids in public schools. I am also the first Pacific Islander to ever run for a school board here in San Francisco. I am the only candidate that has been supported by the mayor, the United Educators of San Francisco, and the Democratic Party. I was born in Hawaii. I'm Samoan, full Samoan. I speak, read in the language. And my name's Faauuga Moliga. My mom and my dad, they were never together. So my mom, I grew up as a Moliga from the island of Mangua, from the village of Ka'u. And then, later on, I met my biological father. And, so if you see my last name, it'll say Faauuga Moliga Puletasi. And so the Puletasi is from my dad's side, who is from Mangua, but from a different island on Oceania. So I come from a very like most Samoans. My mom migrated to the States to look for a better life. To work. She had me in Hawaii, and then she brought me here to San Francisco when I was 1 year old. So that would be around 1983. And so I grew up here in San Francisco. My mom was, she was a waiter. She worked at the famous TikTok on 3rd Street. And then she transferred over to Joe's Cable Car on Silver Mission, where she worked for a very long time until her and her sisters were, discriminated against by the owner and and let go of the job. And they filed a lawsuit against it, which they won. And so that's that, and I also grew up in public housing. So, when I was here in San Francisco, like most Samoans, I grew up in public housing, so I'm not sure how familiar folks are, with the life of, Samoans or Pacific Islanders that live in public housing. But in San Francisco, a majority of the population, today, and I think even in the past, a lot of Samoans, grew up in public housing. So, so I lived that life, right? So, mother, my stepfather, on welfare, had a lot of issues, grew up with, the traditional Samoan family where you go to church, local kaiki, the Sunday school thing. And, I had the grandmother who was just like very fasawa, what they call in Samoan, meaning that, she was just really hard on you. Like many others, I also, encountered a lot of child abuse, through the Samoan cultural upbringing, which, part of my upbringing and my whole process in life has been to be able to heal from all of that, which is how I ended up in mental health and becoming a therapist, which I am today. So I attended public schools in San Francisco. I'm a straight city kid, public housing project kid to the heart. I'm very proud of being from where I am. I don't shy away from it. I went to Parvere Elementary School, Luther Burbank Middle School. And then, during those times, I was a trouble. They would say, trouble kid, whatever it was. I was having a lot of problems in schools in terms of like listening. I always had good grades. I was always a smart kid, but I just was like, through all the disciplinary things that I was encountering at the house and just being from an unstable family living in public housing, I wasn't isolated to the problems that came with poverty. And so a lot of that stuff for me came out in schools. And so in 6th grade, I remember the school used to tell me, they told me straight up, they was like, you're a kid, when you turn 18, you're either going to be in jail or you're going to be killed. That's straight up what they told me when I was in sixth grade. And there was a group of us, they probably told a couple of other kids that, but they definitely told me. And back in the days, it wasn't as progressive and as inclusive as it is today. And some of the methods that they were utilizing during the schools pretty much wasn't culturally sensitive. It wasn't. It was nothing what we're seeing today. It was probably pretty racist too. Um, and I say all that because what they were doing with a lot of us back in the days, Samoans who, and they kind of do it today, that had issues, they were having issues in schools, and the schools didn't know what to do with them, families, they would send them back to Samoa. So I was a victim of that intervention, I guess is what you can call it, because they still use it today. And so I lived in San Francisco until sixth grade. Then I did my migration back home to the islands, but I ended up and a lot of Samoan kids, I don't know if this is true with Chamorros and maybe even Tongans. A lot of folks have been adopted into siblings of their parents and stuff like that. So, um, all of that is just confusing. And I'm telling you all this so you understand the process of where I come from and what I lived through. Because a lot of people look at me today and they're like, "Oh wow, he's become what did he do?" But they don't really understand the process and the methods and everything that a person that has gone through, and they think it was just like a snap of a finger, right? Which isn't. And so I lived in Hawaii for a bit, for about a year. Went to school out there, middle school. Best time of my life. Grew up on the beach, lived with the biological dad. And then I was having trouble out there too. And then um, at that time, I migrated. I went to American Samoa, and this was back in 1994, I think. And in 1994, I was out there. I was a kid. So you got to imagine, right? So part of my platform as a candidate has been mental health. I'm a social worker. It's huge. I understand, the ins and outs of mental health and why it's so important. And so imagine a seventh grader yourself, and you may have experienced this or known some of my experiences, being dropped on an island, not knowing anyone, and removed from their family, and asked to stay there for 5 years, right? So that was my life. So I ended up on that island for 5 years. And I left twice, one for vacation. I left twice. Long story short, I left twice. But I say that because, uh, I ended up inheriting and being impacted by a lot of trauma and abuse in terms of mental, emotional, just because of that, decision and how folks were raising kids back in the days, right? Um, and so I'm out there. I learned the culture. I'm being impacted by all these social stressors, and I'm stronger in certain ways, but I'm also still weaker in other ways. Right? I'm also still weak. I'm not all the way there. I got straight A's now. I'm running track. I'm running in Fiji, Western Samoa. I'm running with the Chamorros out there in Fiji. Doing my thing, but none of that. Education did not solve the mental health stuff that I was going through. So when you're doing well, you get brought back home. So I come back to San Francisco. I'm coming back. It's my junior year. You know, I go right back into the public housing, right where I left off. And I'm back in school, and I'm inheriting my same friends. And 6 months in, and you see this with a lot of our PI kids who ends up, who come from the islands and try to acculturate or try to biculturate into this culture, without the resources and stuff that exists today. And I was gone. I was lost. 6 months, I'm kicked out of school. I'm at downtown high school, continuation school. And then from there, I go to Balboa, and I'm graduating from Balboa. I go from straight A's to, on the road to getting into college, to getting kicked out of school, graduating from Balboa, and going to City College of San Francisco, which, there's no knock on City College of San Francisco. It was the best education I had. But that's just kind of where the trajectory ended up putting me, where I was today. And so I'm at City. You know, coming from public schools, you know, on drugs, almost literally die on the track because I was running track at City College. So I joined the track team. Some of the friends I still have on the track team back then are my best friends today. You know, one of them's a track star, another one's a millionaire, and now I'm an elected official in office. So the City College thing was really good for me. But at the same time, I was at City College, you know, trying to deal with my own mental health issues, not even really understanding what was going on with me, taking drugs, selling drugs on the streets, banging, doing all of this stuff. I almost killed myself. I almost killed myself. By the grace of God, I'm still alive, right? Grace of God, I'm still alive. So I'm living in the projects, and by 20 years old, I'm looking around me. I'm seeing how all the other Samoans in the projects are. I'm like, man, I can't do this anymore. I'm out of here. So I leave. I leave 20 years old. I'm trying to find my way. I'm homeless for like the next year. I'm hopping over the BART so I can get from school to school, because I was like, you know what? If I can't sell drugs, if I'm not going to be successful at that, I got to stay in school. So I went to City College, Diablo Valley, and then finally I finished up at Chabot, and I transferred over to San Jose State University. And I was just thinking in the back of my head, I was like, man, I just got to keep going. And I'm going to tell you, when I was homeless, right before I was homeless, I was sitting on the back of the bus going up and down Pittsburgh and Antioch. And I was like, man, like what? And a whisper, I don't know if it was the ancestors, I call it God. This quiet voice was just like, you're going to be okay. That was on the back of the bus when I was 20 years old. And I'll never forget that. I never forget that, which is why today I've chosen to become very, very spiritual, right? So I meditate, I do yoga, I go to church, all that, just my own personal practice and spirituality. So I go from Chabot, you know, I get out there to San Jose State. My parents just divorced in public housing, and I'm out there in San Jose State. I'm homeless again, no home, no classes. I kid you not, I had $40, two pair of pants, two pair of shoes, and two pair of shirts, and I was sleeping on my boy's couch for like the first 2-3 weeks of the school. By the end of that semester, I had 6 classes. I ended up with like a 3.9 or 8. I had housing, and I found a job. I was like, I was doing good. But that was just the hustle, right? That's the hustle. And growing up in these struggles and overcoming and being resilient enough to know that, I have to just keep going. So I get there, I'm doing well. I'm sitting in my dorm room. I'm just chilling, like everything's fine. And boom, out of the cuts, it hits me. All the past experiences, all the abuse, all the trauma, everything just comes rushing, just whoosh, swarms in. And I was just caught off guard. I was caught off guard. I was caught off guard, took myself to a therapist, and that's when I was introduced to mental health and therapy. And so from there, I didn't do it there, but I had it in the back of my head. And just to kind of fast forward, I ended up, graduating from San Jose State. I wanted to go to law school, and I got into a small law school out there in San Jose. And at the end of my graduating class, I ended up having a kid. Right, I had my first kid. I was like, well, there you go. The universe gives me a college degree, a law school admissions, and my son. Right. So, but little do I know, my son was the reason that I'm the man I am today. Changed my life. I'm a whole completely different person because I became a man, a man in my own word, in my own definition, right? A human being, a responsible adult at the age of 22, right? So I'm hustling, I'm going to school, taking care of my son, you know, and then I'm in school, and at that time, Darfur had this genocide thing going on, right? Mind you, ain't no PI studies going on. Ain't no clubs happening. No, there was like PI groups in San Jose State that was like getting together. They're doing the traditional, folks who take care of each other. But there really was no roadmap on how to succeed or how to like live a healthy life as a Pacific Islander. So we had to figure that thing out. So I'm going through this whole thing, right? I'm going through this whole thing. Darfur's happening. I'm sitting in law school. And it's just out of nowhere, out of nowhere, I'm like, what am I doing in law school when there's all these kids and all these people in the community that needs help right now, like right now. And so I made a decision. After talking to a mentor, he told me straight up. He was like, this was 2006. He goes, you can go to law school, and by the end of your 3 years, you get a law degree. Fire, boom, finish. Or you can start serving the community right now at this point. I was like, all right. He was like, because if you don't serve the community at this point, there's gonna be a lot of Pacific Islander kids that are either gonna be broke, on drugs, or become prostitutes. That's what he told me straight up. That was on a Sunday. Monday, I left law school, and I've been in the community ever since 2006. And the first thing I did was I started up a nonprofit. So when I was in school, I was like, I'm gonna start up a nonprofit, and I'm gonna just, try to build the nonprofit that I feel like is gonna get funded and support all the kids that I can support. And lo and behold, what I ended up doing was focusing the nonprofit on young women, right? And so people are like, why did you do young? Why did you choose to focus on young women? Like you're a dude. At that age, I was 22, right? Didn't take no ethnic studies class. They weren't teaching ethnic studies in schools. I'm not understanding this whole thing about positionality and male privilege, right? The only thing I knew was when I needed help, when I was homeless, when I was on drugs, when I was, trying to live and survive, the people that were there for me was my mother, my sister, my aunties, and the women in my life. So I was like, it only made sense that the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pay back and give and support to the people, to the group that was there for me the most, and and so we did that for 6 years. Me and my friend, we did that for 6 years. We got girls out of that program that graduated from Harvard, UCLA, who are like, at New York exchanging stocks for Pacific Islanders, who are like Latina. We started off specifically for our PI girls, but we ended up like attracting and pulling in, and people wanted to like have services from all over San Francisco. So we were supporting over up to like 100 young women a year, right? And so we're just, it was we did this for like 6 years. And so finally, you know, um, when I was doing that, I got asked to help build the first truancy school in San Francisco. And so that was with the YMCA, with the Care Center. So went on there, and I did that with those guys, and I built out their whole mental health and case managing program. And then from there, I got asked to go up to Burton High School to build the first community schools, which is now has been adopted by the whole entire city of the San Francisco Unified School District. They took the model that we built with that community schools and they implemented it in all the middle schools. And so we did that from 2009 to 2005. And I say this, when we got there, my job was the mental health part. When we got there, the school was getting ready to close down, like literally getting ready to close down, right? Literally getting ready to close down. They were like 50 kids away from not being able to keep the doors open. And 4 years later, after we implemented that community schools model, their attendance increased by 400. Their dropout rate dropped by 50%. And when we got there, it was the highest dropout rate in the city. Right now, Burton High School is probably the premier high school on the southeast side of San Francisco. I'd say it'd be up there like top five, top five, top three in the city right now. It's just so good. And that's the southeast side, which predominantly serves Pacific Islanders, African Americans, Latinx, and our immigrant Asian population. So, you know, here I am working, and mind you, I'm still human. I'm still, working on myself. I'm still, struggling, trying to make it, living in public housing again, moving back to San Francisco, living in public housing, you know, messed around and got arrested, right? Got arrested. Here I am, bachelor's degree, graduated, building all these programs, boom, get arrested, right? Sitting there and I'm like, what in the world is going on, right? And again, I'm saying this because this road to get to where I'm at today has not been like cookie cutter. It's not been like, oh, this is what you got to do to get there. It's been like, left, right, up, down, back and forth. And so that's just the way it's been. So, you know, in addition to this, we just moving. It's like, all right, we're going to do this, but we're just going to keep going. Like, we're not going to let these adversities stop us from continuing to move forward to be able to not only better myself, but to do the things that I know I need to do to help out the community. So I'm doing that in addition to working. We're pushing out all these great outcomes. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know what? I need to learn more about, how to support our population that live in public housing. The place where I come from is what I need to learn because the schools weren't doing that. Programs weren't doing that. Programs today aren't doing that. No program today that I've seen, PIs or, here in San Francisco, has actually figured out how to come up with a solution to address the issues and support our folks coming out of public housing, right? Folks will probably be able to like pull one or two people out of it, but like to actually have a intervention in it just doesn't exist, right? And so I go back to school. Now I'm going back to school. Like, all right, going back to school. I left the law school thing. I'm gonna go get my master's. And at that time, I was really, really, really like, I wanted to learn about mental health, social justice, public education, and public housing. So I got into the Masters of Social Work program at San Jose State, and I'm going to school now, right? Mind you, I got to go to school and work at the same time. So full time worker, going to school, San Jose State, end up in the hospital 2 times during that whole process because it was so overwhelming. But come out of that whole thing with a 4.0, and the first Samoan therapist, to ever, receive a MSW here in San Francisco, right? So we just breaking all kinds of barriers. But I come out of that thing and I learned so much. I learned so much about oppression, privilege, power, positionality, all kinds of stuff, right? Come out of grad school, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I got like 24 job offers coming out of grad school. But I took the job that paid me actually the least out of all those jobs, and it was at Rams to be a therapist in the schools. Because at that point, to me, I was like, man, I could take these jobs that pay 3 times more, or I could take this job where I know I'm going to be a better therapist, right? Because in my mind, I was like, right now in the PI community, we need therapists. We don't have a therapist yet. We need therapists, and that's what I was focused on. My whole career, I've been like, all right, what do we need in the community? We need this. Well, that's what I'm going to do because no one's doing it yet. Okay, someone's doing it now, so we can move on to the next thing. All right, so now we need a therapist. Boom, I'm gonna be a therapist. Now we have therapists. Now I'm gonna move on to the next thing, which is how I got into politics a little bit, right? So now I'm at Rams, making like 3 times less than I should be making, but I'm learning. I'm in the schools. They put me at June Jordan. A shooting goes down. I'm part of the team that triages the whole shooting in the school. So we're meeting with all the victims that have been shot. Kids and parents and counselors and schools. It was like we have never seen a Pacific Islander therapist before. We thought you were somebody else, And it was like, yeah, it's new to me too, right? But um, but we're doing this work, right? We're doing this work, and then I get a call from the Department of Public Health. It was like, hey, we want you to come out here and help us build these wellness centers in public housing. I was like, damn, that must be my calling right there. Just full circle, right? Just full circle. And so I get recruited by the Department of Public Health to be the therapist, a behavioral health clinician in Hope SF. So we're building these wellness centers in public housing, Sunnydale, Double Rock, West Point, Potrero Hill, and we're providing mental health services for the community. And you know, I ended up having an opportunity to then transition into where I'm at today, which is called Mobile Crisis, um, which now what I do is I deal with all the crises in the city, right? All the crises, so meaning like the suicides, the homicides, we put people on 5150s, the whole entire shebang. And all of that, my friend, if you were to ask me, like, when I was homeless, if I thought I was going to be here today, I'd tell you no. I'd be like, no, I didn't think I was going to be here today. But I'm going to get to the whole campaign part, right? I'm going to get to the whole campaign part. So that's my career. That's where I'm at today. Now I'm making 3 times what I was supposed to be making, right? And all that switched in like a year and a half, right? And it's just me following the universe and just trusting my path and trusting my journey and trusting God and just putting my one foot in front of the other. So now I'm like, making all this money. I'm sitting here tripping. I'm like, shoot, how did I end up getting here? And and we got to do all this community work for the Pacific Islander community, right? And so it's like, oh shoot, because none of us are excuse. None of us are. We got to do our jobs, and we still got to help out the community, right? It's just a thing we have to do because there's not enough of us. And so I'm part of this collaborative I was working on this initiative called the Oceania Student Initiative, and I'm pushing this initiative through the school district to have a school-wide approach to supporting our Pacific Islanders and closing the opportunity gap. And we ended up building a collaborative with all these other PI leaders, right? And so they're like, all right, we need you to go to the school district at the board meetings to advocate for our people so we can get this building. So I'm sitting at these board meetings. I'm sitting down. I'm sitting there like, what, man? We actually need to be on the board rather than coming to the board meeting and advocating, for them to do what. Because I was like, because I don't even know if they're listening to me right now. And I'm gonna take us back just a little bit to grad school. When I was in grad school, I took a policy class, and after the first week, I told myself, I was like, oh, we have to run for office. Because it seemed like to me, based on what they were teaching me in school, that the people who were in office were making the decisions that we had to execute on the ground. And I was like, this is a bunch of BS. We need to run for office. And so I got into campaigning. So one of my boys was running for school board. He was like, join my campaign. I joined his campaign. I was learning the ropes. I was like, how am I going to run in San Francisco? There's not even enough PIs for me to actually attain votes. He was like, don't worry. Maybe you're running Hawaii. Maybe you go back to Samoa. Maybe you run out there, right? And so fast forward back to where I'm at today, I'm sitting at the board meetings. I was like, damn, I should be on that board, advocating for my people. And, you know, I'm all about timing and preparation, man. Timing and preparation and being at the right place at the right time. Finally I look, I'm like, all right, who's running for school board right now? I was like, I could beat these people. And then I looked and I was thinking about all the people in our community, and our PR community is like, who else could run? Because I'm like, to be honest with you, I'm tired of doing all these things. Who else could run? And I looked around, I was like, I don't think anybody else could actually run a campaign, understand what it takes, and compete on a level to be able to like win one of these seats. I couldn't see it within our group at this point in time, and I knew it was a thing that I had to stand up and do. So I was like, all right. I had a couple of talks with all my mentors, and this is what I do. I check in with all my mentors before I do something. They were like, it's time for you to run for office. And last November, I just finally just threw my hat in the ring. I was like, you know what? Let's do this. We not only just won a seat on the school board, we outpaced and outran everybody on the school board this last race. We had the strongest campaign out of any candidate, being the first Pacific Islander to run for school board. There was another brother who was running for D10. I'm not sure what happened to his campaign, you know, but the momentum and the strength of the campaign was so magnificent. We raised more money than any progressive candidate that ran this race, and we're still raising money. We got appointed to the school board. Our message was so strong, right? And the fact that people voted us in, there was so much love for Pacific Islanders when I was on the trail. There was also a lot of hate too. I'm gonna tell you that right now, right? And so I learned a lot also being on the trail about people who actually support PIs, and then those who actually don't really care about PIs. And like, we don't really care about you guys. And I'm talking about POCs and everything else, and even people in our own culture, right? So, we end up cleaning slate, breaking all kinds of like historical. First candidate to get endorsed by the teachers union blew everyone out the water. It's like, how does this Samoan guy come in here and blow all these candidates out the water, right? Boom, get the DCCC Democratic Party endorsement. They're just people just blown away, right? People blown away super hard. We're running the campaign straight grassroots, and mind you, the Pacific Islander community was not behind my campaign. They did not support me. I had a few individuals that supported me, but the rest literally turned their backs on me. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, Jesus Christ, but we just still have to keep going, right? We still have to keep going. And so we're gaining momentum. We're earning money. We're hosting events. We're getting all these endorsements. The mayor calls me up. She goes, I want to appoint you to the school board. You're the only person out of all these people that I believe that could actually help close this opportunity out. So we mess around and get appointed to the school board. We're all over the news, and then we finished strong with campaign. We ended up with like 107,000 votes, and in January we're going to get, sworn in, as the first Pacific Islander to hold seat in office. But that's my journey. That's who I am. I'm a father. I have 3 kids. During this process, you still have to be a father. My kids are doing very well. They're very healthy. We have a very loving family. They do very well in school. We have great communication. You know, it's just a beautiful thing, right? I live in the city, you know, and yeah, and that's my story. Yeah, don't wait. I mean, everyone has a calling. Everyone has a timing. When it's that person's time, when it's your time, you gotta go. You know, and like I knew it was my time, and I knew, that the ancestors and God and everybody was going to be with me, even if physically folks weren't going to be with me. I knew it was my time to go, and so a lot of that is really around this hesitancy. Like I was listening to this speaker before I made my decision to run, and he said, there was this leader, and this leader was he had a calling 3 times, and he never responded to that calling. And then this other person comes, and this other person responds to the calling right away. And he goes, and he said the other person, for the rest of his life, was just angry and bitter at the other person. But the real issue was he just missed his calling. And he didn't miss his calling, he didn't respond to his calling, right? So the difficulty around being PIs, and this is why I respect Dr. Polita so much, is, it's a kid. I had this PI kid. He was with me on the campaign trail. He was like, "Why are you out here by yourself?" It's like, "Where's all the other PIs?" And I told him straight up, I was like, "You know what? As a PI, sometimes you got to stand by yourself. It's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to feel good, but you might have to stand by yourself." And everybody, they'll make their decision. They'll figure out when they need to like come around and do what they need to do. But if you know that this is what you need to do, then you need to do it and not expect anybody to show up and support you, right? Because we have a lot of leaders looking left, looking right, waiting for the cavalry to show up. The cavalry is within every individual, and they just have to go. Especially as PIs, because there's not a lot of us, and we can't wait for everybody to catch up. Um, Another thing, my friend was talking to me the other day, and she was like, "Oh, I was at the salon the other day, and the person who normally does my stuff, we're good friends." And she was like, "Hey, I ran into this. I was working on this Pacific Islander lady the other day, and she was like, oh, she was like excited. She said she's going back to college. She was like, this Samoan guy just got elected in San Francisco on the school board. She's gonna go get her criminal justice. I don't even know this lady. I don't even know her. I don't even know her. But one thing I learned on the campaign trail is, and one of my mentors told me, she's like, people are waiting for you to stand up and say something. You might not even know them, but you don't even understand the impact that you're making just based off of what you're doing. And so when she told me about that lady at the salon, who I'll never know who she is, you know, people are watching, right? And folks just really have to just step into it, and it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt, and it's gonna cost you everything. I'll tell you that right now. It's gonna cost you everything. But if you really want to do it, and if it's really something that is at the core of your heart, you have to do it because it's gonna eat at you if you don't. And I've been talking to my close allies around this. Um, what I learned also, like in campaigning, that is something that is going to be dear to my heart, that I'm going to vocally push and publicly push, is the internalized racism and discrimination towards our LGBT community, uh, Muslims. You know, I was going around and I was like, damn. This one person was like, I'm not going to support you if you're pro if you support LGBT, or if you know Muslims. I was like, I'd be damned to be the first elected official to come out here and be homophobic. You know, not only do we need to be inclusive, and not only we are in times where we are progressive and we have to like stand up and support all of our people, uh, but it was an issue for me, right? It was an issue, and a lot of our leaders, if you're progressive, if there's some things that that may not be culturally, I don't know what to phrase it, but it is time. It is time for us to start talking about these internalized racism and the homophobia that exists in our culture, and to support our women, so that we are able to empower them. My thing, the next elected PI in this city for me, if I have any power or sway, is going to be either LGBT or a woman. You know, because we have to start breaking not only the barriers in careers, but those barriers that keep us oppressed in places that, continue to sicken our communities in ways that they don't even understand.